people also create. Oh, sorry, I think today we didn't wait for people to join. That's bad, but it's all good. So like I was saying, most of the time, people normally use index as their first HTML. It is not, I mean, a cast in stone thing, or it's not like it has to be index at all costs. But defaultly index means your first page, and so it's kind of okay when the first page or the first file that you want to load is named index. So I'm also kind of more adjusted to that. So normally in all the things that I do, my first page is either index or is the base, depending on for instance, if I'm using Django, your first point of call will be your base file, which normally contains your libraries and your resource files, the links to your resource files. And so that's the base. That does not contain your actual web page per se, so it cannot be your index, but it contains all the other essential things. So for Django, normally I use a base for my first page, then the index will be the home page. But when it is just HTML, I like to keep the index as the first page that will run. And so yes, so this is our index file. This is from our last section. So we'll clear everything, leaving out the structure, the base structure of the page. And so okay, these things, I think we can leave the meta tags and the link tags, that's fine. But we are going to alter certain things in there. And so, please, I believe you are following along. Yes, so let's give our page a better title. So I will call mine Geospatial Developers. Call mine Geospatial Developers Home. That's my title. You can give it a title, any title you want. I believe we are all familiar with titles. We know what titles do because we talked about it during our first session. Then, the first meta tag, which is our keyword. Normally the keywords are keywords of our website that would help search engines locate our website. And so I'll keep the keyword as Geospatial Developers. But I think I didn't talk about this, but you can add more than one keyword. You can basically do that by bringing in a comma, and then you add the other keywords. And so let's give another keyword, a keyword as WebGIS. We can add more, but so depending on what keywords you want to add, you can add more keywords to it. And then the next meta tag, which we would also keep, is the description. So yeah, we'll change the content of the description to WebGIS development. Yeah. Okay. So there, we are good to go. For the Bootstrap 4 that we downloaded, we'll still use it, so we'll keep it there. And then, but you see, we've changed the folder directory, so we have to change that here too. So the link is first you enter the asset folder, then from the asset folder we'll enter the Bootstrap folder, which is this one. Before, in the Bootstrap folder, there's a CSS for Bootstrap, so which is this, and the actual Bootstrap files, which is also located. And for our style, the correct resource and the correct reference link is that we first need to enter the asset folder. Then from the asset folder, we have the CSS, and then we have our style. So that makes sense. And we will keep this just in case we want to add an inline CSS reference and an internal CSS. But other than that, we'll leave it blank. So let's keep it. So yeah, I think we are good to go. So this is our base structure that that we are going to use. So from the Bootstrap we learned. So let me refresh and run this page so that we can all see. So yes, our page is blank, and our title is in there as we want it. So yes, now that we know how to use Bootstrap, we are going to call a div, and then from Bootstrap we learned that there's a class called container in Bootstrap. So would reference the class container. Now there are two forms of containers. We have the container and the container fluid. Now the difference between the two is that Bootstrap, for when you choose a container, Bootstrap will give your container some padding and margin at the left, especially the left and the right sides. It'll give it some space. So let me show an example. Let me put an H tag, header tag, and then we would see what I'm talking about. Or basically, let me still give this container a border. So let me give it a style and give it a border. This is not part of the class, but I'm just showing something. So yes, if I give this and I run, so you see that, okay, so this is for container fluid. So I was saying that the difference between container and the container fluid is, for the container fluid, there is no margin and padding at the other side. But if it is just a container, Bootstrap will give it some margin. Bootstrap would give it some margin at the sides. And so, hey, why am I? Did I add language? I didn't add anything language. So why is it translating for me? And that's fine. Bootstrap would give it some space around, but when it's a fluid, a container fluid, the container fluid doesn't hit. It's like there's no space. It doesn't allow any space around it. So we would use the, because we are building a map page, and then we don't need spaces around. We would keep the container fluid. So we remove the things I place inside. And please pardon me. I think because of where I am, my languages is, I think I'm using my phone, and so I think the internet keeps switching between the countries, and that's why I'm getting this, but that's fine. Let's continue. So we have our container fluid, which we are going to use. Defaultly, every div comes with a padding. So this is going to be an inline style, but we need to make sure that paddings, we are not entertaining paddings, and so we'll give it a padding of 0 pixels, meaning that even though the container fluid is giving us a margin of 0, we would also ensure that there's no space, even inner space in between the box. And so we'll give it a padding of 0. That's fine. So now we are going to do one thing. The beauty of Bootstrap is that it has some predefined components we can use. Yesterday, if you guys remember the page where we got the Bootstrap from, I think it's getbootstrap.com. If you go there and you go to Bootstrap 4, because that is what we are using. I think we explained why we want to use Bootstrap 4 instead of the current one, which is 5. So we are using Bootstrap 4. So make sure that if you go to Get Bootstrap, so I think we can all go there, getbootstrap.com. When we get there, you should make sure that there's this particular section, we've selected 4.0 instead of 5, so that we can all follow along. But it will be basically the same, because navs, we are going to use a nav bar. Navs are the same for all of them. So whether you are using Bootstrap 5 or you are using Bootstrap 4, if you go there, the procedure is going to be the same. So we cannot go there as we are speaking. Now, on the Bootstrap page, this is where we downloaded our Bootstrap the last time. So we downloaded it from this section. But now we're going to look at some of the components of Bootstrap. So on your left side of the Bootstrap page, just click on the components section. Now this section is going to give us sample or snippets of things that Bootstrap has defined for us. So you can just call them or copy them into our page. They're already styled and beautified in a way for us. So there are a lot of them, and I'm not going to go through all of them because of time. But we are just going to copy something from here, the nav bar. Now we can choose to design our nav bar from scratch. That will take some time, but that is not the essence of what we are trying to do. Please kindly excuse me. Let me attend. Sorry, my apologies. I had somebody in at my door. Yeah, so sorry, I'm back. So, like I was saying, we can decide to develop the nav menu from scratch, but that wouldn't favor our time. And so we would use what Bootstrap has already defined for us. That is why we are copying this Bootstrap. And so we can visualize it from the page. This is what we are trying to copy. We want something like this. And so we can just simply copy the code. There's a copy button here. We can copy it and then paste it below our container fluid. And so now this is a lot of code, but let me expand small so that we can all see. Please, are we following?
Yeah.
Okay. If anybody is lost at this point, kindly draw my attention. Let's get back. So this is the only thing we are going to copy. I made us copy this one because it will take some time for us to develop. But basically, this are HTML tags. The nav tag is an HTML tag, but then Bootstrap added some styles. And so when we run Bootstrap, we can visualize. So let's see what we have just copied, the nav, and then let's refresh our page and see what we do to our page. So let me refresh. Yes. So I don't know why I'm getting a lot of this language shift, but that's fine. So yes, basically this is what we've imported, the navigation menu onto our page. Now we can debug. I think I spoke about debugging the other time. So if you are using, I think depending on your mostly Chrome, Firefox, even Edge or Explorer, if you click on the menu, the three dots at the top, and you go to more tools, you go to supposed to be at settings, sorry. So the three dots at the top, if you click it and then you select more tools, you have developer tools here. So when you click on developer tools, it gives you the place where you can use to debug your code or further explore the syntaxes that make up your code. And so let me minimize I've zoomed my thing to 150. So let me minimize it so that we can debug. So now, basically, this is our container. So this is our nav, navigation control. Now, this class is nav bar, navbar expand and whatnot. These are just Bootstrap classes. So it just tells you some of the classes that Bootstrap would add to. So we didn't spend time. Now look at all this CSS that is written from the color. Look at all this, and look at even the navbar itself. Look at all these classes. So ideally, we're the ones supposed to write all these CSSs, and you can imagine that it will take some time for us to get these things. So look at all these things. But then Bootstrap automatically has done that for us, making it easier for us to reference. So yes, that is for our navbar. You can just navigate, and then you can equally play around with the classes. And so you can just decide to maybe play around with colors and stuff and see what they will do. That's the beauty of the debugging tool. So when you are debugging, you can play around with the colors to see what will happen if you change them. But the drawback is that you can't save in the debugging. So whatever change you do during debugging, you can't save it. But you can just copy the code. For instance, if I wanted to change this background light, after modifying it here, so I select on the tag. After modifying it here or changing the color here, I can copy the code. So if it were purple that I want, I'll just copy this code back to our HTML page. You know, the inline or whatever CSS you are using, whether the reference one or inline. I can paste this CSS here, and then I save it. Now, what will happen is that because I've pasted, now this purple color would stick, so it wouldn't go. But if I hadn't copied it and I refresh the page, even though I change it here, if I refresh the page, it would return to what color it was previously. So normally, changing your stuff at the debugging side, you have to copy it to the original file. Yes, so now we have our nav bar. So after our nav bar, now we need to define our container itself, the container that we are going to use itself. And so for that container, we are going to define another div. So what is going to happen is, I also spoke about indentation. And so you realize that the page that I'm doing, I've indented everything. Children tags are pushed a bit one tab or one space inside. The reason is that it helps me to be able to minimize and effectively manage my work. So now that I want to move to the bottom, I can just simply minimize these sections. Even the nav, I can just minimize them and they'll fall in line. So I can come down here, introduce another div. This div is going to be our map area. So I have my div, and then I'm going to give it a Bootstrap class. A Bootstrap class, please. Can I be heard?
We can hear you.
Yes, please. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to give it a Bootstrap class of the grade system, and so I'm going to use the default medium screen. So I'm going to give it a column, a medium screen, and that I want to use all the 12 medium screens. If you remember, we said that there are the Bootstrap divides each page width into 12 sections. And so I'm going to use all the 12. And then, please pardon me. Yeah. Hello. I think I can still be heard, right?
Yeah.
Heard.
How you doing? We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I'm still going to maintain that there's no space inside, because every div normally has a default space of 15 pixels, which is inside a padding of 15 pixels. That is standard for Bootstrap divs. So I'm still going to maintain my padding of 0 pixels so that there's no space inside. Then I'll put in another div. This div is going to be our div that is going to hold the map. And so I'll give it another class. This time I'll give it a class name that would be okay for me. Or I'll give it an ID. So normally, because the map has some unique functions, unique scripts or styling that you're going to do to affect it. It's always ideal that you give it a specific ID. Remember, we said that IDs are unique. So we'll give it an ID of map. And then we can give it a class too. So maybe a class of box. Let me call it box. But you can give it whatever class you want to give it. So map box. So this particular thing is going to hold our map. That's nice. So let's now begin to add some styling to that side. Now we are going to give it a height, a fixed height. So we are going to do our first styling. So let's go to our CSS page, which is here. For those who are using Sublime Text, you can just load your entire project into Sublime Text. So you just drag the project and drop it inside Sublime Text. It will open it on the left side for you so that you can access all your resources from Sublime Text instead of navigating between the folders and the text editor itself. So that is basically what I've done. So I'll locate my CSS here. I think we did some CSS before. Now we are not using it. So we'll delete that CSS. And then our first CSS, let's give it a comment. I think we learned how to comment CSS. We said that this is how we comment it and how we close our comment. And in the comments, let's name it. This is our map CSS. I know people, the way of styling their CSS is a bit, so maybe we can equally also do something like that. This is just, it's not part of development. It's just a way to make sure that your code is readable. So people tend to, do a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not. So, okay. Okay. So yeah, this is for the map CSS. So now remember we referenced our map. We gave it an ID and a class. This height that I'm going to give is unique. So we'll use the ID. So the ID is what? Map. So now we'll give it our CSS. And we'll say that map should have a certain height. Now we are given a height, but we are going to use a certain height property, which we in CSS, which you call a calculate function. Mind you, we want the height of the map to be static, because we don't want the map to be scrolling and then there's the scrolls in there. But this is a situation where we have already introduced the navigation section. Ideally, we could have just set our map to 100% or 100 VH. And VH is view height. That is also another dimension that we are using in HTML. They have the VW for width and then the VH for things that are height. This VH means that it's the full width of your screen. Whatever screen, whether medium, large, or it's just the full width, or the percent, it's like percentage, but this percentage is not 100% base. It's more like it calculates the width of your screen and it gives it either a percentage of that. So use VH for height. If it were width, we'll do a width of 100 VW or 20 VW. Sorry, 20 VW. These are now part of CSS. I think it started with CSS 3. Yeah, this is what they introduced in CSS 3. But we are just doing for height. So I was saying ideally 100 view would take the entire screen and then there will be no scrolling. But you see, we have a nav bar, and this nav bar, we don't want it to affect the width. So what we'll do is, so let me continue, then I'll later show what I want to do. So we will set the height to 100 VH, and then we'll give it, let's say, a background color so that we can identify what we are doing. Let me say EEE. Then let me save this and refresh. It seems that CSS is not, page is not seen as CSS. So we need to find out why it's not seen as CSS. There's a map ID here. All right. Okay. It's seeing it. I think the color that I gave is the issue. So let me give it a bright color so that we would. So the color is green. Yes. Now you realize that you see there's a little scroll in there. Basically, even though if I were to comment out the nav or this container, if I were to comment it out and give it, let's say, display of none would hide it. So if I give a display of none and I refresh, you realize that the scroll is gone. So basically it's because of the nav bar. That's why we're having that scroll. So I'll take off my display. So how do we maintain the width at the full, but still like would respect the nav bar that is there, but we'll still keep the height of the map at full length? Do that by the property, the CSS calculate property. And so what we are going to do with this, the style that we wrote for the map, we are going to say that the map should do a calculation. And this is how you do a calculation for CSS. The map should calculate the entire height of the page. Now, when the entire height of the page is seen, the map should now subtract. Let me refresh. Now the map should subtract the height of the nav bar from the entire height of the page. And so if you look at the nav bar has a height of around 40 pixels. Or let's say it has a height of around 55 pixels. And you can see that by, like I tell you, I'm using the debugging tool. So if you debug, if you come to the bottom, you can see the width and the height down there. Or basically you can look for it through the code. So I can tell the width of the nav bar is around 55 pixels. And so what we can do is that we can calculate for the entire screen, and then we'll subtract 55 or 56 out of the entire screen. And so this is how we are going to do it. So calculate the screen, which is 100, the viewport is 100 VH, and then we'll subtract 56 pixels, which is the nav bar. And then when we do that, we'll still keep any other thing in. When we refresh, let's see if we can find our page. But I realized that our style is not working anymore. And we need to find why our style is not working. Okay. All right. Okay. I think it's a so you see in the backend, I know that there's a problem with the calculate function that I've written here. I don't know why it's giving an error, but then let's okay. The height, you calculate 100 VH minus the 55. Okay, so it's supposed to be a space between, it was saying the 50 minus 55 as an integer value, but that's it. It's actually minor and then 55 pixels separate. So that's why I wasn't coming. So now it will run now. Okay. So if I refresh, so that's the page, and you realize that there's no scrolling. Yes, so we are done with the page, and please, today is going to be short. So basically, that's all that we are doing. After we style, and then we are good to go. So this is going to be the area where the base maps will be showing. I'm not the one going to do the base map. Jed would take you through those things, but would just set everything so that Jed would take through. So I think green is a very too loud color. So let me return back to the ash. Maybe the EEE. I like that EE color a lot. That's some dull ash. It's not really white, it's ash. Okay. So yeah. Now we are going to introduce the section where our switches, what we call the switches, we are going to turn on and off the layers. And we are going to do that by going to introduce a certain box here that would use to control those things. So this box is going to be inside the map, because the box will be lying up of the, like inside, it will be inside the map. So literally that's where we are going to keep it. So introduce another container. And then this container, let's also give the container a class. So maybe I'd say F2 box as 2 box, because SSSVR 2 box. And then in the container, now Bootstrap has also something they call a card. So cards are part of Bootstrap. They are more like, so if you come here, you see cards. They are a way of just like we have the complementary cards. You see, just some box and you have your text and everything inside. Basically, that's how cards are. Only that these HTML cards, they come with my internet. They come with some headers and wow. Hello, I believe you can hear me. Some reason my internet is not
We
working.
hear you,
still
but
go on
yeah,
with that.
the video doesn't load fast, and sometimes it jumps a whole section. So
the screen is not showing.
I mean, it's lagging a bit, and then it jumps and catches up, and sometimes
I think
we
my
miss
internet
some
is very
parts.
okay. Oh, that's bad. My internet is a bit unstable. Is my video visible now?
Yeah, we are back on the Bootstrap page website.
That's bad. That's bad. Let me try and then. Let me try. Okay. Sorry about that. My internet is unstable today. I don't know why. You can see my text editor. Can you?
It is behind the Telegram pages. Yeah. You see the chat in front, actually. Now, yes.
No. Then no, that means my video is still lagging. Okay. Let me switch, please. Can you give me? No, I've changed. Now my text editor that is supposed to show, but then it's lagging.
Visible now.
Then let me change the internet, and then let me see. Maybe that will make any difference. So, okay. Wow, that's some serious lagging there. But please kindly bear with me. I have control over them. So yes, basically what I've done since then is that now we're on the map where the map is going to show on a page. Let me change my. So please, at any point in time the video is lagging, kindly draw my attention so that
Okay.
Okay, so I think Eugene dropped off. He's trying to change the source of his internet, and he will connect back again. Thank you. So once we wait for Eugene, so basically, what Eugene is trying to help us build is the framework, the framework of the whole system that we want to develop at the end of this program. Yeah. So as he taught earlier, so he added a nav bar, and now there is a big space left for the map to come and fill. So that green space that you are seeing there, yeah, so the map will come in there. And what he wanted, I think the last thing he wanted to touch base on before he finishes his presentation was there's a certain panel at the left side where all the layers will be put there for you to switch it on and off. Yeah, so that's the last thing he wanted to touch base on. So let's pardon him. I think it's out of control where he's currently located now. The internet is not favoring him. So let's give him a minute or two. If he doesn't connect, then we can call today's session a day. Then wherever that we reach, the next session we can continue from there. All right. Thank you.